久不见，我叫 Denise. Long time no see. I'm Denise, the Pharmacist Filmmaker. So today I'm going to be doing another book review. This is on the book called The Kingdom of Back by Marie Lu. So as usual, this is my Mandarin channel where Mandarin Journey with Denise. I'm trying to learn Mandarin, so I'm reading books that are just books I'd be interested in that are written in English, but when I do my review, I try to put in some Mandarin words that I can learn. So yeah, here we go. So The Kingdom of Back, it's a historical fiction and a fantasy novel. So it follows siblings, two siblings, or in Mandarin, 兄弟姐妹. And there's an older sister, or jiào. Her name is Nunrol Mozart. And then there's a younger brother, Didi, in Mandarin. And his name is Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. So it is about the Mozarts. Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart, he's a famous musician, famous composer in real life. So this follows the siblings when they're young. So she's the older sister. She starts off the book about 8 years old, and then it goes, and the majority of the book happens from her being 8 years old to 18. And then he's a few years younger, so I think he's like 4 years old to like 14 years old during the course of the book. And I'm looking down at my notes that I took about the book so I don't forget things. But basically, Nunrol, the older sister of Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart, she is just as amazing as him, as a composer, as a musician. Her musical ear is amazing. Like, she is just a child prodigy as well. But you know, I'm sure you didn't know anything about her. I didn't know anything about her, even though she's a real person as well, who was a musician, who was amazing. So that's sort of what the story focuses on, like her childhood in the shadow of her brother, with a lot of fantasy stuff involved. So basically, their father teaches, he's also a musician. He teaches them from when they're young, and it's just undeniable that she's an amazing prodigy when it comes to music. Her little brother starts playing eventually, and then he is praised a lot more than her. He overshadows her, even though their talents are like very similar as far as the level of their talent. And he's allowed a lot more freedom than she is. So they do start performing, they go on tour, they perform for royalty, and her creativity is so stifled because she's a girl. So like what she can wear, like even it's like physically constricting, and it makes it more difficult for her to perform, but she still rises to the occasion each time. She's not allowed to socialize, she's not allowed to be silly, she has to always be like a little young adult, an adult in like an 8-year-old's body. But her little brother can just be silly and funny, and just his creativity can flow. She's also not allowed to compose anything because she's a girl, and girls aren't allowed to compose. But her little brother, even though he started after her, he just can compose at will. And they buy, expensive paper for him to write, and they're always giving him all the supplies, his parents, to write. But she just writes her compositions in her musical compositions in private, in secret, and then she hides them around her room, because she knows if her father ever found out that she was composing, he would be like, this is so embarrassing, and he would throw them into the fire and yell at her. So she really has, like, there's this ongoing theme of like making yourself small, and she always consistently has to make herself small, and not like shine as bright, because of the circumstances around her, because of society, because of her family, because of assigned gender roles. So she makes a wish when she's 8 years old. She makes a wish that her music is not forgotten. And she sees like her whole life is just about, you know, Wolfgang being praised and her having to hide her even more beautiful talents from the world. Um, and so she just doesn't want to be forgotten. That's it. Simple wish. So this wish is heard in this mirror other world called the Kingdom of Back, which is the title of the book. And it's this little fairy creature called Hyacinth, like the flower. I didn't know that a hyacinth was a flower, but you learned something. So Hyacinth, he hears it, and then he comes to her, takes her to the Kingdom of Back. He exposes her to even like more the most beautiful music, and then she spends a lot of time trying to recreate that music in the real world. Um, they make a deal. So he says, "Here's my deal for you. I am going to give you immortality through your music. In exchange, you help me get my kingdom back." So she's like, "Sounds good. Okay." Um, he has her do several missions to that will like get her certain objects that will ultimately help him get his kingdom back. So like she has to go to the Queen of Night and get a night flower, like steal a night flower from the Queen of Night, who's like supposedly this horrible witch. She has to go to an ogre and steal his sword from him, and this ogre, he kills anyone on sight that he sees. Then she also has to get an arrow. So all of these objects are going to help her on a final mission that will get Hyacinth's kingdom back for him. In exchange, she's going to have immortality. So yes, she does start to see a lot of success. She does get praised a bit, but everything is like with her brother. So she's like, okay. And sometimes her brother Wolfgang goes on the mission with her, but the majority of the time he does not. And so Hyacinth is very clear that like, I am your guardian, Nunrol. He even says one point, "I am your guardian, not your demise," which is like, that should have been a red flag, because if you're really just somebody for good, you don't usually have to tell people like, "I'm not here for your demise." Spoiler alert, he's here for her demise. So, eventually, as she does these, she has some questions sometimes. She sort of asks him like very, not very often. She'll ask him just like, "Oh, so what do you want to do? Like, what are you trying to do or whatever?" And he's just always pretty vague. He never answers. He's very evasive. He doesn't actually answer her questions. And she just sort of goes with it because she is getting to perform. She is composing secretly. She's enjoying herself, I guess. But then it just keeps building up as she's doing more missions. Like every time she goes on a mission, he tells her beforehand, like, "Oh yeah, don't believe what anybody says. Like the Queen of the Night, like she might try and talk to you. Don't answer her. The ogre, he's trash. You know, he's scary." But then when she looks at these people, she actually encounters them herself. And mind you, she always has to go on the missions like without Hyacinth. So Hyacinth is always, that's another red flag. Like, Hyacinth, why can't you do this stuff yourself? And so she'll see them, like she saw the Queen of the Night, and she said like, just in her mind, like, this, I feel sorry for this woman. Like, I feel like she's lonely, she's trapped here. Like, what's her story? And with the ogre, she looks at him, so she's so scared out of her mind when she's going to see him, and he's sleeping with his sword, so she actually has to really get close to him. But he's asleep and he's like dreaming. And then she has this interesting line where she says something like, "Even monsters must dream of wants and desires," where it's like, you know, she's able to see humanity in anything and anyone, and that sort of causes a bit of her downfall as well, where she sees the good when they're in evil too sometimes. So with her sort of seeing like, hey, these people that you're telling me are scary and all of this stuff, like they might be fine, like her intuition starts creeping up, boiling over, and she sort of questions Hyacinth finally, like, and not like normal, like when she's just like, oh, why? And he is just like, ha ha ha, you're so funny. Let's continue. Okay, go do what I said. You hurry up. You can finish the mission. Like, that's usually how he answers her, a non-answer. And then she just goes with it. But this time she was like, no, I'm not going to do this thing that you're telling me to do until you explain your motivations, like what the full picture of the plan is. And then she wants answers to what she's been realizing is that when she interacts with Hyacinth, every time, like afterwards, in the real world, her brother Wolfgang gets terribly sick. So she's like, are you making my brother sick? Like, what, are you more sinister than I believe? Like, I thought we were friends, we're good, and I'm helping the good guy, but she's having some questions on like whether she can trust him or not. So yeah, and the other part that she's like not trusting is he specifically tells her, like, I'm your guardian, not Wolfgang's, like, so I only talk to you, I only see you, I would never see your little brother by himself. Like, if I see him, it's because I told you to bring him with you. But then it becomes sort of pretty clear that he has been seeing Wolfgang alone, secretly, and we don't know what exactly he's telling Wolfgang, what he's having him do, like if that's contributing to Wolfgang being like randomly sick. So she just puts her foot down and she says, I'm not doing anything else. No. So then Hyacinth was just like, okay, I got something for you. So he gets back at her. His revenge is that he has her father find all of her compositions, all of her beautiful, like her heart poured out onto the paper of her music that she's created, and he puts them together in a book and presents it to this royal family who had requested Wolfgang to like write some music for them, like a whole bunch of musical pieces in a really short amount of time so that it could be given to like a royal person for their birthday. And Wolfgang wasn't going to be able to meet that deadline. So the dad steals all her compositions, puts them in a book, hands them off, and he's like, here, this is what my son wrote. It's so amazing. Everybody loves it. And it's just like the ultimate betrayal for Nunrol. So here she was believing that her father would just straight up burn her compositions. But instead he took them and put her brother's name on it. And once again, her brother, she's living in the shadow of her brother when it's actually her work. It makes her so, she has so much hate in her heart, so much negativity in herself after this betrayal that she gets like deathly sick. And it ends up putting her right back into the arms of Hyacinth, because Hyacinth, he thrives on that negativity. He thrives on her like feeling distrust or mistrust with the other people in her family. Like he's always trying to get between her and her brother and sort of insinuate that Wolfgang is the one who makes problems for her, and Wolfgang is like the whole he's the creator of all of the bad things that happen in her life. It all starts with Wolfgang. So sometimes she does feel like, yeah, it is Wolfgang, when in reality it's like if the two siblings could just talk like heart to heart and be honest with each other, they'd see like, no, like we're on the same team and might be Hyacinth that's bad. So, but they're young and they just have a lot of things going on. And all of this, even though Nunrol's compositions were taken and Wolfgang's name was put on it, it's not to say that Wolfgang wasn't brilliant. He's just as brilliant as her. That's not what the book was saying at all. Like, they're equally brilliant and just a little bit like creatively different. It was just because of the deadline that he wouldn't be able to make. That's why the dad took Nunrol's stuff. So Nunrol's back in Hyacinth's arms. She does everything now without question because she's just fueled by anger against her. It's really against, if we looked at it, if she was able to articulate in words like what she's upset about, we would see, hey, she's upset about her situation, about, her role in society, about the circumstance around her, but it just ends up getting like hate against her brother, basically. That's how, she's unable to communicate with herself what the issue is, so it just sort of comes out against her brother. So she gets Hyacinth's kingdom back as soon, like immediately, immediately as he's on the throne. She realizes he's no good. He is the villain. She just, aided and abetted and hurting all of these innocent people. And she realizes, looking back, how she's been tricked consistently. And she resolves in herself to make things right. So as she starts making things right, and she's going to get the kingdom back to the correct people, and dethrone Hyacinth, she still has that hurt in her heart that her music's going to be forgotten, that like no one's ever going to know that how great she is, and her music's never going to be credited to her. So Wolfgang, well, one of the times where he gets deathly sick, like the kids are always like about to die. Especially Wolfgang is always on the verge of death with some sickness. This time I think it was smallpox, and they have a heart to heart. So he's just like, if I'm dying, I need you to know this. And he tells her, like, the only thing I've ever wanted to do with my life is to be just like you. You're my big sister, and you're so amazing, and you're such a great talent. You compose beautifully. I just love hearing your music. I wish the world could hear your music. And he just opens up to her, and he tells her, like, he didn't know, he wasn't part of the whole betrayal thing. And then, yeah, like, so she hears that, and she really internalizes it, and she ends up, it's like a game changer for her, because she realizes that while her wish was to never be forgotten and to be immortalized through her music, her brother, who just wants to be like her, and who just wants her help in writing things, and who just wants to write together with her and play with her, play their musical instruments together, that she's immortalized like in his heart, and he's one of the greatest musicians in the world of all time. So it sort of puts things into perspective for her, and it heals their relationship. And then now she gets the strength, like, to do the things that she has to do to reclaim the kingdom and all of this. So yeah, there's a whole lot of extra stuff that happens in the book. You should totally read it. It's really good. Some of the themes I saw were like looking for outside validation consistently. So Nunrol, it's like she was an undeniable talent, like just beyond her years, beyond her time, and people know that, but she still, like, regardless of if people know it, people say it, people hear it, she was amazing. And the fact that she didn't feel amazing unless like other people could recognize it, that's what leads to a lot of her unhappiness. And it's a really good lesson, I think, for just real life. Like, looking for outside validation sort of just leads you to unhappiness. If you're great, like, work on just being great for yourself, because her compositions, her musical pieces were great regardless of if anyone heard it or anyone didn't, if anyone praised it or if anyone didn't. It was fire, okay? So that shouldn't change. And I think that's something that I want to work on, to make sure that I'm just not looking outside for validation, but just doing things that I'm happy with and being a person that I'm happy with. So that was a really good theme and lesson. Then a lot of self-doubt happens throughout the book as well. And it's just like, again, like, you don't need to doubt yourself. Just keep going. You're so good, Nunrol. Like, if you just knew. And that self-doubt leads her to work with people like Hyacinth, who, like, he ends up taking credit for a lot of the performances and opportunities that she gets when she meets him. But I feel like she would have still had these opportunities. Her talent was undeniable, but because she doubts herself, he's able to take that credit, and she does feel like, okay, I need him to continue, and I'm going to continue down this path that I'm unsure of, and doing things that I don't necessarily agree with completely because I need him. But she never needed him, so this self-doubt, it has to go. And then another theme that was throughout the book, of course, was just the impact of enforced gender roles. So Nanro consistently has to make herself small because she's a girl. So she can't talk, like, they have like these big performances, and Nanro can't interact with anybody. She just has to, like, if she's not playing, she has to just like look down and be quiet. And if anyone comes to her, like, she's gonna get in trouble, especially if like a boy talks to her to be like, oh my god, you're so amazing. Like, she's the one who gets in trouble. But Wolfgang is up on stage and he's like playing the violin and winking at girls, and everybody's just giggling about it, and it's fine. So that sucks. That part of it totally sucks. Also, we see Nanro's mother. She also has a huge, like, the gender enforced gender roles have a huge impact on her life as well. So I mentioned that Wolfgang gets smallpox. There was a lot of, basically, if they had listened to the mother, he probably wouldn't have gotten smallpox. But because she can't assert herself in making the decisions over her own children, and because her husband always just overrules her, period, she just has to fall in line, his bad decisions lead to Wolfgang getting smallpox. So that's a huge impact. Like, she knew there was danger. She knew what they needed to do to get out of danger. She tells him repeatedly, we got to get out of here. We need to go. The kids are not safe. He waits too long. He reacts slowly. He won't listen to her. And then they end up doing what she originally said, but just when the husband is ready to do it. So Wolfgang gets sick and almost dies. So that's like, it's sick. It's just, I can only imagine how, as a mother, she must have felt so hurt to see just her role as a woman has led to her child being hurt, her child almost dying. So those are some of the themes that I saw. I want to read to you guys the author's note, because so the book was good. Like, it was interesting, a little bit interesting in the beginning. Then it has like a really slow middle, and then it picks up like towards the end, and the end is fire for days. It's so good. I was originally going to just give it 1 thumbs up for that because of the whole part of it that was slow. But then I read the author's note and I was like, 2 thumbs it is. So let me read you this part of the author's note. So first, before I read that, as far as so it is historical fiction. So some of it's based loosely on some truths. Here are the truths that the author identified, that when Nanro so Wolfgang did have a sister, her older sister, her name was Nanro. Well, Nanro's actually her nickname. And when she was 12, she was composing. There were letters written about her of how she's one of the great, from her father to like other people across Europe, about she's one of the greatest musicians of her time. She's beyond her years. And it's true that Wolfgang loved her, that they were close as siblings. And that another truth is, according to the author, is that when they would perform together as siblings across Europe for royalty, as they were traveling, they would play a game called The Kingdom of Back, like the name of the book, and they would like invent stories. So, I was thinking, like, why did she make it like all fantasy and stuff? But based on that, it's really based on like truth, so that's pretty cool. I like that already. So let me read you her note, the author's note. So she says, what legacy could Nanro have left if she had been given the kind of attention and access that her brother enjoyed? What beautiful creations were lost to us forever because Nanro was a woman? And how many other countless talents have been silenced by history, whether for their gender, race, religion, sexual orientation, or socioeconomic circumstances? I wrote this book for the Nanros of today and tomorrow. in the hopes that when they are ready to share their brilliance with the world is ready to give them the attention and honor that they deserve. And just like that, Marie Lu, the author, is back to being on my favorite authors list. I also had read another story of hers, which is totally different than this. It was like a high-packed action thriller tech type of book called Warcross. So this is a different style, different genre, but I really liked the other book, and she was like totally on my list of favorite authors. Then I read this one and I was like, eh. Then I read the author's note and I was like, love you again. So yeah, I would say the author's note elevated the book status in my mind. So yeah, I totally enjoyed it. Let me know what you thought of it if you read it. Let me know if it sounds like something you'd be interested in reading. And of course, like always, if you have any recommendations on what books I should read next, let me know in the comments. Thank you so much for listening to my book review. Share. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Thanks for watching. Have a good one. Goodbye. 再见.